The movement was begun by a scientist who discovered, quite by accident, these signals being sent. Please understand, they are safe as long as they are not discovered.
They want the weapon.
Look out for Charlie.
I want that son of a bitch dead. I want him dead.
A lot of people don't know how I got into what I do on this channel. And I want to take the time to explain that because it's relatively important. I didn't wake up one day and just say, oh my God, there are frequencies out there. I need to start making videos on this. I mean, this was a long process. This started probably 13 or 14 years ago. You know, I had discovered these before, but they didn't seem interactive. They were just sounds. And then it began to change. I began to notice changes. And I'm going to tell you the story. Back then, we'll just say a woman was sleeping. I don't want to give her identity away. A woman was sleeping in my house every night. And I would stay up all night because that was the only time I could really get shit done, was when I stayed up all night and I would knock this stuff out and go to bed at like 5 in the morning and get a few hours sleep. Well, I began to notice that this woman began to sleep talk, and it would come in cycles. She would sleep talk for 2 or 3 weeks and then stop completely, and then after that she would just like move her limbs for 2 or 3 weeks, and then she would begin to sleep talk again, and it would progressively get louder and louder to the point where she was talking as if she was awake and talking to somebody. It would progress from mumbles to just flat out talking. So I began to record it as a joke. I thought it was funny, and I recorded it. Now, when I listened back the first time, I began to hear these noises in the background, in between her speaking. At first, I was like, wow, I thought I turned off all the TVs and everything in the house. I must have left something on. So the next night, I made sure that everything in the house was off. And just like clockwork, she began sleep talking again at about the same time, having conversations back and forth, and I recorded it. And then when I listened to it again, those voices were still there. And I was like, dude, that is really messed up. So being into audio, I started to analyze these things, and I was shocked and very amazed and kind of put in a state of bewilderment. I almost couldn't believe it, what was going on. So as I would get into this audio, it sounded as though it was interacting with her. And then I began recording it all the time and analyzing it. This was an amazing thing to me. So I really began to get into it, and that led me down the rabbit hole to where I am today. She was absolutely and totally interacting with something that wasn't in the room. Well, recently I was talking to somebody who gets into the whole Columbine thing. And I said, hey, I have some audio for that I'm going to look for. Well, I was going through all these drives, all these older drives looking for it. And while I was doing that, I found the original recordings from that time period that I had been looking for a long time. Now, I'm not going to show you all of them, but these are the very first recordings that got me into this, and I want to show you these because they're very important. I'm going to show you a few clips of this. This was back in the day when things were much louder, kind of like the Mark Taylor period, where you could really record these before other sounds and other frequencies started being added to it. After that, my house was blasted with ELF and interference, and I couldn't even keep light bulbs in it. I still can't. For example, I got 2 heat bulbs recently, and within a few days, both of those heat bulbs have blown. Boom. The higher the wattage on the light bulb, the faster they blow. They can't handle the pulsing that is hopping onto the power grid. Real quick, you may be asking what power grid pulses, what pulses on the power grid. For those of you who don't know, I have documented this. This is my light. The whole house was doing this, but I focused on 1 or 2 lights, and this was while the power was out, but this began pulsing in my house. Check it out. So I just wanted to show you that it does exist. It can be documented. Now, I'm not going to show you everything. I'm just going to show you a few clips to show you what was going on and how it was going on. And this is very, very important because this is the first stuff I ever worked with that was showing me exactly how this was operating and what it was doing. Okay, so in here, you're going to hear this person snoring here. And then what you're going to hear after that is another sound mimicking it for the exact same length as the snoring. So it's almost like a parrot repeating what is going on in the room. That is how it started, with voices in between. So check this out. That's a snore. Now listen to what happens afterwards. It's almost like radio static did the exact same thing in a parroting fashion. Then we keep going. And it mimics it here. So that's the snore, and this is the repeater, like the parrot repeater repeating what is going on. And then a voice comes in here, and it says last name something, clear as day. That's a voice. It's unmistakable that it's a voice. You can't even debate it with somebody. It's a voice in our quiet house while this person is sleeping, whispering as though it is whispering into this woman's ear. So there's another snore. And then this other sound comes in that's artificial and mimics what's going on. Listen to that. So that's a real snore. And then a thing mimics it. This is amazing stuff. It was some of the most important stuff I ever had. After that, as I said, my house began to be filled with interference. It's mimicking it. And you can actually hear radio static. Now there's even more important stuff, but this is cream of the crop shit. Important stuff. Now this is more repeater parrot shit. We were awake, so here I was talking and I forgot what I said here, but I say something and you can hear it right here. Now that's me. Now listen, after that, even louder than my voice, something is going to repeat exactly what I said with a robotic fashion. Listen. You can hear it absolutely repeat me. I'll loop it. Oh, 100% repeating what I'm saying out loud. Now something is said here. It's the female in my house, and then I say, I know. But one voice mimics both of those sounds at the same time. Listen. Louder than our original voices. Louder. This is amazing stuff. So here's something is said in the room. And then it is repeated again. The system repeats. It's as though it is learning voices or phrasing or timing. Check it out. So right there, it is repeating the same timing and the same phrasing. So when I tell people these things, it's not stuff I made up. It is stuff I learned in the very beginning. that something is hearing and something is mimicking exactly what is being said. Now here, you're going to hear the female say something, and then you're going to hear a fake female voice, or robo female voice, repeat exactly what she said. Check it out. It repeats louder than the original recording. When I heard that, I was just like, wow, because that one was loud and it's a female voice. And in this part, you're going to hear me say something here lower, and then you are just going to hear a bunch of weird interference in voices. No. So there is something going on here. Now let's get to the original sleep talking recordings. In this first area here, you're going to hear a voice speaking in like a weird robo CB voice. Alright? And then you're going to hear the woman respond. What the fuck are you doing, or whatever. And then it responds again. This threw me for a loop in the very beginning. I was just blown away. This is crazy, right? But it's happening. Here's a different version of the same recording. I'll play it once. Those are pulsed communications. They are not demons. They are not ghosts. They are not ghoulies. They are not anything but pulsed communications. Here's another one. There are tons of these, but I'm just going to play you a few of them. A voice is here, and then it is answered. And then it is answered. Now that's the woman. They're everywhere. And it doesn't happen while she's talking. It's in between. Each one. In between. Always. Like a conversation. Back and forth. Here it is talking in between breaths, as though it is following her breathing with a 0.50 hertz signal, which is totally possible. When she breathes, gotta get out of here. Now here is one that absolutely and 100% proved to me that it was pulsed and modulated voices. Each syllable is a pulse. Check it out. Sounds like good there's people. Every syllable is a pulse. People. People. And if you listen, you can hear that static in the background. Whenever you hear that in a recording, there's going to be a lot of this. I didn't have to do anything to these recordings. This is all surface audio. This is the first case, the original case. You can hear the signal almost break up. It sounds like you're all demons or something. And that's not the first time that's been used in this house. Now, I haven't heard it. I've heard it in recordings. Here's another version of that same recording. Now this was interacting with her all the time for weeks, but a lot of it is seems private and personal, so I'm going to leave that stuff out of it and just show you that it was happening. And you heard the original. I'm just showing you that these are pulsed communications now. The demon thing has been picked up a lot in this house. It's corny, it's stupid, but it's been tried over and over. And I used to do these fake ghost hunting things where I would hunt for ghosts. Let me show you some of that. Here I was doing a fake ghost hunting adventure. I asked a question and then I ended it with yes or no. I say this here. And very quickly you hear this voice here. What, with that same tone structure, those same frequencies, it gets to here. And what it sounds like it says there is, let's try as a demon. Corny as shit, but that's what it sounds like. Let's go to the demon part. A demon. Goofy. Didn't faze me, but you know, it's a choose your own adventure book. If someone believes that it's the FBI or the feds or aliens or ghosts or ghoulies or demons, it just plays along with whatever somebody thinks it is. And this happens to all the victims that actually hear this with their own ears. I'm going to show you one more demon adventure that I had. So at one point, I was working in the garage and I had a recorder going in my house. Now, I didn't hear this with my own 2 ears. I heard it when I played it back. And I flushed the toilet and I walked out of the house. And as I walked out, you could hear this what I call the Fat Albert Demon. The Fat Albert Demon sounds like an old laugh box from the 70s that like an old man would have as a joke, almost. It was very corny and very stupid. But this is what it sounded like, and I want you to hear it because it's very real. It's a very real sound. Could someone else hear this with their own 2 ears? Absolutely, if it's in the house. So it laughs, and then it says, I have the something. Let's play it again. And you can hear my boots on the floor, walking out of the house, on the wood floor. But there's a voice that rides on those footsteps of my boots in the house. Now this is the original video. I'm just replaying this because there's a point to all this. Right in sync with the boot steps. Let's listen to a different version that I sped up. So what it says there is, just kill yourself. All these voices were recorded over the last 13, 14 years. You know, all these voices in this house, and they're everywhere in Michigan. This was in Michigan. Michigan is a hot spot for all this. It is national, it is global, but I'm focusing on Michigan right now. And there's a reason why. It is happening to many, many people. And they are hearing these audio weapons with their own 2 ears, not back in recordings, with their own 2 ears, and instead of documenting it, they are freaking out. If people are aware of it, if you are aware of it, and you understand what it is, what it does, and what it's designed to do, people are not going to freak out the way they do. I have documented this on many, many, many people who have no notion of this in their waking hours. But while they're sleeping, they are being chatted to, just like I showed you. Now you can hear that these are like breathy whispers when they talk to somebody in their sleep. It almost sounds like a heavy whisper. Check it out. And it almost sounds like there, right there, it says, I want to come over.
They're just children.
And that's the woman responding.
There's an arm around you. How did you even remotely think that's okay with me?
I mean, at that point, she is speaking like she's completely awake.
How did you even remotely think that's okay with me?
So she is being chatted to over and over and over. Now, there are people that hear this in their sleep, and then there are people who hear this when they're awake. The difference is large. It's all the same thing, but there is a difference. Now, I showed you this in my last video. This is Kaylin Louder. She is not in Michigan, but this is an excellent example of how this works. This started off with her believing that she heard gunshots at a wedding reception that was happening in the communal apartment complex, the little center, and it progressed to her believing that people were in her house doing things. And she thought there were people in her house.
When I have an intruder at the house, they're stealing from my house.
Okay, were weapons involved or mentioned?
And they're not talking or responding. I'm just telling them to leave so I can hear them taking things.
So you haven't seen them, you can just hear them?
Yes, correct.
So this happens in every one of these cases. They don't see anything, they hear it, and they believe it. You believe your senses. And in the fear and bewilderment of this, you react to it. This is happening all over, but it is happening in Michigan right now. Michigan has been a hotbed for this, and there are many, many cases. So let's just look up Michigan woman heard voices in Google. Michigan woman claimed to hear voices through the TV, just like James Holmes, before allegedly killing 3-year-old daughter. You will read case after case after case after case. A little weird, especially when you can document the voices. They are no different when someone is asleep or awake. They are there, and someone can hear them. If you are sensitized to it, you can hear it. My neighbor across the street thought someone was in her house and kept calling the police. They eventually came over and talked to me, the police did, asking me if I had seen anybody over there, and then after I said I had not, they asked me if she had any type of mental condition, which I told them I don't know. But it happened. She called the police more than once about somebody in her house. This is happening over and over and over. And it's driving people to do very, very insane things. Adrienne Quintal was from the Southfield area, and she drove up to her cabin, called her friend in a panic, saying that there were guys outside of her cabin, and she ended up getting into a firefight with them, claiming that she shot one of them in the face. The only way she would know that is if a voice said, "Oh my God, you shot him in the face," or something like that. Let's listen to what they had to say about this.
Well, the search for a missing Southfield woman takes an unexpected turn. Investigators are now telling us what Adrienne Quintal said during a frantic phone call to friends moments before she disappeared.
This just keeps getting more and more bizarre. That phone call between Quintal and her friend was Quintal telling her friend that she was involved in a shootout. And now the new information that the phone that she used to make that call was found on the roof.
It was found on the roof because she crawled out in a panic. This is a fear and bewilderment inducer. She crawled out in a panic, and she was later found dead near a swamp behind the cabin.
We're very puzzled by this case. I've been doing this for 39 years, and there's just a lot of things that we're just going, this doesn't make sense.
None of it adds up.
That's her son.
Leaving everything behind and just disappearing like that.
Terrifying. She must have been terrified in order to shoot. She heard noises outside.
Officers found
So it takes advantage of your senses. She didn't see anything. She heard something. She heard voices. She heard men. They probably said they had guns, right? And she gets in this firefight with nobody. They are using these. These are weapons. If you are unaware that these weapons exist, you are living in La La Land. They have been using these for decades, but it is ramping up because it is much easier to do. It is wireless. You can do it anywhere.
Officers found multiple gunshot holes in the walls, one in the ceiling.
One was in the ceiling because she probably heard the sounds upstairs or in the attic, as though someone was climbing through or getting into the attic. That is totally typical and totally common in these cases. It is not weird.
But none appear to be fired from outside the home. Quintal's purse was left behind, her shoes and cell phone used to make that last call discovered on the roof.
It was discovered on the roof because she hopped out a window and took off in a panic. For those of you who don't know that these weapons exist, let me get you up to speed. Here is just one rinky-dink Mickey Mouse version of this.
So again, this idea of being able to put sound anywhere you want to is really starting to catch on. We've got the military had just deployed some of these into Iraq where you can put fake troop movements a quarter of a mile away on a hillside. Or you can whisper in the ear of a supposed terrorist some biblical verse. I'm serious.
So not only can you put fake troop movements and fake whispers into somebody's ear, you can also put gunshots, voices, anything that you want in a vicinity around a person. You know, that is what they don't tell you, is many of these people that are quote-unquote suffering some mental health condition are not suffering some mental health condition. These voices are not in their head. They are out and around them. There's a big difference between the two. A big difference. And people who are hit with this stuff can even hear it in their head, but a majority of people hear it within the walls, or it sounds like it's out in their driveway, far away. The further you study this, the more people you talk to, the more you realize that this is not sound in their head. It is much different, and it is much more dangerous because these people are falling for it every single time. Here is a family that was recently hit with this stuff, and I absolutely 100% believe that they convinced him by talking to him through this sound weapon that this was about 9/11 because he was probably investigating 9/11. And then this turned into this. It's not because he investigated 9/11 until he became paranoid. That's ludicrous. Here we go.
A family of 4 missing without a trace.
I need some police protection immediately. It is related to September 11th, and people want to erase me from the face of the earth.
And they want to erase him from the face of the earth. Where did he get that information? He was told that via sound weapon. That is the only thing that can get you and scare you enough to pick up your family and just take off.
I'm not crazy.
Fremont police say Tony, Suzette, Brandon, and Noah left in their 2005 silver Toyota minivan later that day.
I know this sounds crazy. You don't have instructions for this. Please send someone that knows the deeding and can talk to U.S. authorities, please.
Really what my officers were spending...
I don't want to hear what this guy had to say because they don't understand it. They don't take the time to understand it. I have documented it and shown it to you multiple times. This is what these people are being attacked with. Michigan is just a hotbed for it, has been a hotbed for it, and it's just picking up. Now this one is a hard one to figure out, and I would like to interview this guy. Whether I have to go interview him wherever he's at. What happened was he was hearing people in his house and they found his girlfriend or his wife dead. Something happened. I don't believe that he murdered his wife or his girlfriend. I believe he was scared to call the authorities because he thought people were in the house. It's a very, very strange story.
His family made the call to 911.
Our next door neighbor was knocking at the door. We didn't know what was really going on. He was really frantic. He was saying there were armed men in his house with children and then they were going to shoot.
Police.
Armed men in his house with children. So he was hearing the sound of guns, probably the sound of weapons being charged up, like the charging handle. And then he was hearing children's voices. Now think about that.
Police arrived shortly afterward. When they got inside the home, they found out the story about an armed gunman and children was false.
It's not false. He was under the impression, because his senses were being tricked so hard, that he jumped out of a second-story window. And then when the police went in there, they found his girlfriend or his wife wrapped in plastic. So here's another case where this is happening. It's happening everywhere. I think they said in this one that that area had 0 homicides in its history. So come on, man. Come on. And back in the day, before I knew anything about this, I used to believe that people were doing this for like a lighter sentence or something, but that doesn't make sense. So I'm going to kill somebody, but I'm going to claim to hear voices to get a lighter sentence. You're still going to jail or wherever. It really made no sense. It was doublethink on my part. Okay, this was just brought up to my attention, and this is a woman from Pontiac who thought somebody was after her. Why would she think that? Because she was hearing voice to skull. Guaranteed. Let's check it out.
That mother's family tried to get her help, but she didn't get it.
Now, what that's going to angle for is pre-crime policing and the mental health Gestapo bullshit. When these people are actually hearing a physical sound, a physical vibration.
When that mother and her 2 sons were found dead in a vacant field in Pontiac.
Mother and 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter, were in that field. It was cold. The daughter woke up, found that she was going to be okay, at least to a point, and walked over to that house, the white house over here on the right, and knocked on the door Sunday morning saying she needed help. Mike Bouchard says Monica had somehow decided people were out to kill her, including sheriff's deputies, and she left her apartment only a mile away from here on foot with the 3 children looking for safety.
She was scared out of her wits. She was hearing this. The one thing that I find strange about this is that they're saying that she died. They all froze to death. But the problem is in Michigan, it's been raining every day because it's been so warm. It was only cold around Christmas, and then it got really, really warm. In fact, I looked up the highs, and it's been 46, 43, 48, 41, 36, 30, 32, 43, 41. It hasn't been freezing. It's actually been pretty warm for this time of year. So all 3 of them dying, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But regardless, these were weapons that drove her to do this, and people are being hit left and right. Look at the case of Colin Finnerty. He thought he was being followed when he talks about he was out on a lake right before he died, same kind of thing, and talked about men following him. He never saw those men, not once. He heard them, and people misconstrue and mistell that story all the time. Colin Finnerty heard men following him on the bank while he was on this little area of water. He could hear them, not see them. And this happens over and over and over. There was even the story of an Ann Arbor guy who would only hear this stuff when he used a blender or anything that made noise, and then he would hear these people talking to him. Michigan is a huge hot spot for this shit right now. Now, what is this doing? This is bringing in pre-crime policing and mental health Gestapo bullshit. Like, we got to get them before they commit this stuff. That is what they are angling for. That is what they want to do. But it is happening. Believe me, the first case I ever discovered totally blew my mind. But as I studied it, it led me down the rabbit hole to where I am now. And there's 100% evidence of this happening. Now, if you heard this in your house, or around your house, or in the woods, you would believe that something was there. It's undeniable. You would totally and completely believe that something was in your vicinity when it wasn't. It would trick your senses, and it would cause you to do something that seemed completely irrational to investigators if something happened to you down the line and they had to piece this back together. It would look mad. And it's not. Your senses were tricked into doing something else. Whether it's a whisper or laughing. Now, if someone woke up out of their sleep and said that they heard something, there's that too. Now, if you woke up in your bedroom one night and you heard this next to your ear, you would 100% believe that somebody was in the room. And if they had to piece this back together later, you would totally look irrational, even though you weren't. This is not the behavior of irrational people. This is the behavior of rational people trying to make sense of something that is happening around them, and it's taking place. And you better be aware of it. The more people are aware of it, the less it can happen. So if it happens to you and you're aware of it, you can ground yourself before you do something that looks insane to people later. Spread the word and be aware of it. That's it for now. Look out for Charlie. That's it for now. Look out for Charlie.
Oh man, I like this kid. This fucking guy's crazy.
Look out for Charlie. Charlie, what the son of a bitch? I want him dead.